if we go here, so let's see the first circuit here, for example. Let's see the other. Here we have the power jack, as you can see. This is the power jack, okay? So you can just go here, check these two pins. Here, normally you should get 19 volt. And also after the inductor here, we have the V adapter or V battery, no problem. You should find here 19 volt. Or for this schematic, find here 19 volt, okay? So you should check the presence of plus V adapter or V bar about 19 volt in the motherboard, okay? And then check the 3 volt and 5 volt power system. After the V adapter, the power will goes directly to the 3 volt 5 volt power system. This is a very important power for motherboard. You can check using the multimeter these two voltages without powering up the laptop. Then you should check the 3 volt in the pin number 8 of the BIOS. As I told you before, the pin number 8 of the BIOS, you should get 3 volts. If you don't get 3 volt in the pin number 8 of the BIOS, it means there is a problem in the power. If you find that all these voltages are good, then you should program or flash the BIOS chip to solve the problem. So of course, before flashing the BIOS, you should check whether you have these voltages. If you have all these voltages and the motherboard still a D motherboard, you should then program the BIOS. So how to check for a short circuit in the motherboard? This is really a very important information. It's really a secret. So the secret is the inductor. This is the secret. This inductor are the secret that you can use to find any source in a very short time. So how? I will show you how. So as you can see, this is basically inductors or coils. So inductors or coils are never connected to the ground. So these coils in laptop motherboards and even computer motherboards can never ever connect to the ground. Never. Always the inductors exist in the power rail. Okay? In the power rail. If we go here, for example, to the schematics, so let's see the first schematics here. As you can see here, here we have inductor, and here we have other inductors. You can never find an inductor connected to the ground. Never. Why? Because always the inductors is connected to the power rail, as you can see. The inductor, we have 19 volt in the inductor, because inductor is just a wire, like a fuse. You can never find a fuse, for example, connected to the ground. Never. Because just like a wire, okay, as you can see. So here also we have inductors connected to the power rail to 19 volt. That's why if you find that an inductor is connected to the ground, means automatically the short circuit is in that circuit where that inductor belongs to it. In every motherboard, the inductor or coil can never ever be connected to the ground. Always the inductor in the computer or laptop motherboard is connected to the power rail. So if you find any inductor that is connected to the ground, means you have a short circuit in the circuit that the inductor belongs to it. Proof. Let's take a look to the schematic of some circuit of laptop motherboard. So let's now see why the inductor is not connected to the ground. For example, here we have 3 volt power rail. Here we have the 3 volt power rail, as you can see. Here we have inductor. So inductor connected to 3 volt power rail. Basically, this is the pad. We can see this is at this point where you can check whether you have 3 volt or not. Do you see the inductor? So the inductor is connected to 3 volt here, okay, and connected to this chemical capacitor and this ceramic capacitor, and then those components connected to the ground. So let's check another power rail. We have here 5 volt power rail, as you can see. Here we have 5 volt power rail connected to the inductor. Okay, so the inductor, you will find here 5 volt and here 5 volt. Okay, you can never find an inductor connected to the ground. Here, for example, we have 1.8 volt for the rail. Okay, so here we have 1.8 volt. So the 1.8 volt basically is generated by these 2 MOSFETs and an IC here. We have normally an IC here. So here we have the V battery. Basically, we have here 19 volt that will pass through this MOSFET and then through this MOSFET, and 1.8 volt will be generated here and will pass through the inductor and through this part, and we will get 1.8 volt. So to test this 1.8 volt, we can just test it here in this part. This is at this point or in one of these terminals of the inductor. So you can find here 1.8 volt, 1.8 volt. So the inductor can never be connected to the ground. If you find, for example, that this inductor is connected to the ground, means automatically here we have a short circuit. Maybe this MOSFET, because this MOSFET is connected to the ground here. Maybe this capacitor, or this capacitor, or this capacitor, etc. Okay? So let's check another schematic. Here, basically, we have 1.5 volt power rail. So the 1.5 volt is generated by this MOSFET, and we have, of course, an IC. So the 1.5 volt will pass through the inductor. So we will get 1.5 volt, 1.5 volt, 1.5 volt, 1.5 volt. Also here, you can check 1.5 volts, as you can see. If, for example, this inductor is shorted, means automatically we have a short here, not the inductor. Why? Because inductor is just a wire. Maybe this can be shorted or this, or even this. Okay, so this is why you should use always inductors to check for a short circuit. How to troubleshoot the short circuit? Put the multimeter to the buzzer or continuity option, as you can see here. To check for a short circuit, you should use the multimeter, of course, and choose the buzzer or the continuity option. And check all inductors, basically all inductors in the motherboard. All inductors should not give to you a low resistance to the ground. This is the rule. If you find an inductor that is connected to the ground, means automatically you have a short circuit. Then you should check the component around that inductor. 6. Let's now see how to check the BIOS. The BIOS, or basic input-output system, is one of the most important ICs in the motherboard because it contains firmware or a program or software that is responsible for the post or power on self-test. The post is the first operation that should be performed before downloading the operating system. The post has as a purpose to check and make a self-test to the hardware parts. That's why if that firmware is corrupted, the post cannot be performed, so the laptop will not work definitely. So to check the BIOS, you should first connect the power adapter to the power jack of the laptop and then check whether you have 3.3 volt in pin number 8 of the BIOS without turning on the laptop. If you find that 3.3 volt is present, means you should program the BIOS to start the program. But if you don't find 3.3 volt, then you should troubleshoot it. You have problem with the 3.3 volts. You should troubleshoot it from the power jack into the BIOS. Okay? So basically this is the BIOS that we have seen before. So here we have pin number 8, we have VCC. You should find always 3.3 volt here. In pin number 6, when the laptop is on, you can find 1.5 volt. This is the clock basically. And write protect 3.3 volt. So basically this is the BIOS pinout. So the pin number 1, okay, here basically we have the chip select input. So we have chip select input here. So DO means data output. WP means the write protect input. This is the ground or the VSS 4th pin. So the 5th pin we have input output, data input, okay? And for the 6th pin we have, as you can see, the serial clock input. Here we have the hold input, and here the VCC, the power supply from the BIOS. So the last part here we have how to check motherboard ports and connectors. Connectors are usually ignored, dismissed by many technicians, but it's among the frequent causes of dead motherboards. If the connector is damaged or some of its pins are connected together, it can cause a short circuit. Then the motherboard will stop working. That's why you should always pay attention to the connectors.
We have this dot, means this is the pin number 1, okay? Pin number 2, 3, pin number 4, always the pin number 4 is connected to the ground. We will check it. Pin number 5, 6, 7, and 8. 8 always is connected to the VCC. So to check the BIOS, let's use the multimeter. Let's first put the multimeter selector to the buzzer option, as you can see here, or to the continuity option, and then press the power button. Hi again. So we're going to see the BIOS chip and configuration. We're going also to see how to download the circuit diagram of every BIOS chip you want. We're going also to see the schematic of the BIOS chip, and of course we will see some real BIOS chip in the motherboard, and we will use the multimeter to check its pins, to check the VCC pin, and of course to check the ground pin, etc. So let's get started. So as you can see here, this is 8-pin BIOS chip, as you can see. But first, I will show you how to download any BIOS chip you want. So let's assume that, for example, we have a BIOS chip with this reference 25Q16BVS IG. Okay, so here we have 16, so this is the size of the BIOS chip. So 16 in megabit. So 16 in megabit equal to 2 megabyte. So let's go to Google and type this reference 25Q16BVSIG and then press enter. So as you can see here, we have the first result. We have here 25Q16BVSIG. So let's get to this first result. So here we have the same reference, as you can see here. So this is 16 megabit serial flash memory, as you can see. So 16 megabit means 2 megabytes. Okay, so let's go here and download the data sheet. So let's just click here, download. So here we go. Here we have the file, as you can see. So we have 25Q16BV, as you can see also here, we have the 25Q16BVS or BVF. This is interchangeable, FIG or BVSIG, no problem, because this is the interchangeable. Okay, all these are interchangeable. This BIOS reference BVSIG is the interchangeable with this. Okay, so now let's see the pin configuration. As you can see here, this is the table of content where we have all about this BIOS. We have here the pin configuration. As you can see, you can read about every pin, its working principle. Okay, so let's go directly to the pin configuration. Okay, so here as you can see we have the features. As you can see here, this is 25Q 16 BV. As you see, 16 megabit or 2 megabyte, as I told you. Okay, so because 8 bit equal 1 byte, so this is a 16 megabyte or 2 megabyte. So here we have many features. As you can see, you can read all these features. And here, as you can see, we have the pin configuration of this BIOS. Okay? So this is the pin number 1. Always you have this mark here in the pin number 1. Okay? This is the pin number 2. As you can see, this is input output. Data, as you see, DO means data output. Okay? Here we have the WP, the write protect. Okay? Here we have the ground. Always the BIOS chip in the pin number 4 is connected to the ground. We will see this in the motherboard, okay, in a real motherboard. So here we have pin 5, we have DI. This means data in, okay, so data out and data in here. Here we have the clock, okay, this is for synchronization. This is the clock. Every IC should receive a clock signal, okay, for the synchronization. Okay, so this is the clock. Here we have the hold for input output, and here this is the VCC. Always the 8-pin BIOS is powered in the pin number 8. So in the motherboard, when you want to check whether the BIOS is receiving the power or not, you should check the pin number 8, and you have to find 3.3 volts. Okay. When you plug the adapter in the power jack of the laptop motherboard, you should go directly to the BIOS and you should find 3.3 volts in the pin number 8 without powering on the laptop. Okay? So this is the pin configuration. So here, as you can see in this table, this is the pin description, as you can see. Okay, so always the pin number 1 is, as you can see, this is chip select. Pin number 2, as you can see, this is data output. So always in the pin number 1, we have the chip select, as you can see. The CS means chip select input. This is the data output, as you can see. This is the write protect input. Always in pin number 4, we have ground. Data input, as you can see, in pin number 5. We have clock in pin number 6, serial clock, as you can see, hold in pin number 7, and the power supply, as you can see here, in the pin number 8, VCC, okay? So now I will show you the schematic of the BIOS in a real laptop schematic. So this is a laptop schematic, no matter the type of the laptop.
Oi! Ei, tuonka sensei.
Okay, the BIOS, the pin configuration of the BIOS, the schematic of the BIOS.
Jätä minimi kuulkaa.
The working principle is the same. If you get and understand this schematic, you will understand any schematic and any pin configuration of any BIOS chip. Okay? So for example, here we have the table of contents for this schematic. As you can see here, let's check for the BIOS. Here we have the ICH, as you can see, here we have the DC battery changer, select battery connector, the system power 3 volt, 5 volt. Here we have the processor, the GCH, the DDR, this is the RAM. So here we have LCD connector, this is the ICH or the storage. We have the SPI. SPI means the BIOS chip, okay? So here we have the CPI, as you can see. So always the BIOS is near of the CPIO and also near of the ICH. So the